I loved and gave myself compassion before trying to discipline myself. It felt repulsive to give myself love because I was used to disciplining my desire. Discipline produces fruit in your life. Discipline is supposed to be a good thing. It's not supposed to be something that we dangle in front of ourselves as punishment. Encouragement to you guys is get aware of your triggers, your belief systems, what's going on inside of you. And then from there, start the process of what does it look like for me to love myself in this space first. What is up, you guys? Sammy Robbins here with Alive and Free Consulting, and I'm not used to being in our studio by myself right now. Spence has a meeting with one of our employees, so I thought I would just jump on here because one of the biggest things that I have learned in this journey is that I am good, that my desires are good. And I used to have a lot of shame and self-hatred, and I would judge myself for the different things that were going on inside of me and for the different actions and behaviors that I had. And I would not like the action and behavior that I had. And so then I would try to shame myself, which internally the voice in my head sounded like, I can't believe you're doing this again. And if people knew who you really were, then they wouldn't love you. And you should know better by now, and too bad you're not good enough, because if you were, then you'd get love and acceptance. And it would stack on more shame and then more self-hatred. I would sow in self-hatred, and so what happens when you sow something in? You reap it. Like if you sow in an apple seed into the soil, are you going to grow an orange tree? No, you're going to grow an apple tree. So if you're sowing in self-hatred, you're going to be reaping self-hatred. Oh, I wish I would have known that back in the day, because for me, I know I've shared pieces of my story. I don't know if I have on YouTube, but whenever I was 10 years old, I decided that I wanted to be a model. And so we took headshots, sent them out to a bunch of different agents in Dallas, Texas. I got a bunch of responses. I ended up signing with the top modeling agency in Dallas, and I started taking off. I was working for JCPenney's, Dillard's, Neiman Marcus. I worked for cheerleading magazines, the Home Depot, the Dollar General. I just was working like crazy, and I made tons of money, and it was the way that I provided for my mom. So my mom was my manager. She would drive me, and so that was her job, was taking me to modeling events. Now, when I started modeling, I went from being the new girl in school who was picked on super frequently and kind of just like a nobody, to all of a sudden I was really cool. Everybody loved me. I was significant. I knew that I was beautiful because I was modeling, and so models are known for being pretty. So I felt value for, oh my gosh, I must be pretty. And everything in my life started changing. So a lot of my value was coming from the root of, well, I look a certain way. So it came down to my body image. And so fast forward a couple of years, I start acting. I almost booked Disney Channel. All of this crazy crap happened, which I won't go into. My house ends up burning down. I end up not being able to fly out to LA to sign with this big agency. And I ended up quitting modeling and acting entirely. This was a really hard time for my family for a number of reasons, but what was the hardest for me was the strain that it put on my relationship with me and my mom. And this is a huge part of my story and what I've had to walk through and heal from. And I know that my mom watches my YouTube channel, so hi Mom, I love you. Remember that I've forgiven you and I'm not carrying resentment towards you. We've talked about this multiple times. So at this point in time, my mom and I were under a lot of strain and pressure in our relationship. And I started believing that she only loved me because she was making money off of me. And my sisters would say things like, you're mom's favorite because you pay the bills. And I started like noticing like, oh, my mom does favor me. And why does it feel like I get so much attention and so much love, but when I'm not modeling and when I'm not making money, now all of a sudden we have tension in our relationship and we're fighting and disconnecting. And so what I started believing, which I didn't know this until years later, was that when I was modeling and making money, I got love. So if I looked a certain way, I modeled. If I modeled, I made money. And if I made money, mom loved me. So everything came back down to my body image. So fast forward, I'm 18 years old. I haven't modeled or acted for 5 years. And for 2 years, there was this buildup of like fake hair, fake nails, fake eyelashes, fake tan. I couldn't go to the store without a full face of makeup on. I couldn't even look in the mirror. I would lay in bed and I would grab the fat on my stomach and I would squeeze it. And I remember just saying, I just wish I could get out of my body. I just hate myself. I hate myself. I hate myself. I would go to the gym. I would hate myself into going to the gym. I'd punish myself, tell myself how ugly I was, how fat I was, that I needed to work harder, otherwise I wasn't gonna get love. And so I'd finally get to the gym, and then I would hate and punish myself and shame myself through my entire workout to get me to keep going. And I eventually hit this point where I dropped 20 pounds. I loved the way that I looked. I felt like I had finally figured out my makeup, and I finally was making money so I could dress the way I wanted to dress. And all I was trying to do was strive for love and acceptance. Because remember, to me, if I look a certain way, then I get love and get acceptance. Because that's what my little girl brain decided to do with my circumstances and my surroundings. So let me just pause on that. Our brains in our adolescent years are scanning, and this is our whole life, but especially when you're a kid and you're figuring out what you believe. Our brains scan our environment to try to make sense of things. And so they want our brain and our bodies naturally fight for balance. They naturally fight to make things make sense. And so we look at our circumstances and our situations and we try to understand what's actually going on and make meaning and make sense out of what's happening in life. And then there's this part of our brain, let's call it the prover, and it's constantly scanning to make sure that things are accurate. So for example, if I believe that I'm not pretty, it's a belief now, and I believed it because of X, Y, and Z that happened in my life. Now this other part of my brain is scanning, trying to validate and back up that belief system. So say, for example, I have a friend and she comes over, and this would happen whenever I was like 18. She'd come over and I'd get all ready and I would feel like, oh, I finally look pretty. Now, if she didn't say anything or compliment me, or if she, I'm trying to remember because my brain doesn't function like this at all anymore. But if she made a comment about how something looked funny on me, or said she didn't like this on me, but she liked this on her, you know, like the petty, like high school girl stuff. Well, if I heard anything that remotely sounded like it could be rooted in the fact that they thought I wasn't pretty, I would note that, and then I would start building a case for why I wasn't enough, or why they didn't think I was beautiful, and then it'd reinforce that I wasn't beautiful. So we have a part of our brain that fights for belief systems, and then we have another part of our brain that's scanning, trying to back up why that belief is true, because our brains want balance. So fast forward, now I'm at this place where I finally feel like, oh, I feel beautiful because I have all of the external things and circumstances in my life right. And I was stuck in a fortress of my own self-hatred and shame, and I didn't even know it. And so I had an encounter with God when I was 18, and I started going on this journey of unraveling the years of self-hatred that I had built my life on. And I started recognizing where these belief systems came from, why me looking a certain way was so valuable to me. And I started recognizing, like, wow, my desire the entire time was just for love and for acceptance. But because of my belief system, I decided that I had to look a certain way in order to get love and acceptance. And so what I would try to do was use discipline, aka training really hard in the gym, getting the right clothing, doing my hair and makeup a certain way, carrying myself a certain way. I would use a discipline to try to fill my desire of love and acceptance. and I would just work harder and eat less and do all these different things, and it actually never filled my desire. Anytime I did get love and affirmation for the way that I looked, it was actually an inauthentic, conditional love and acceptance I was getting. So every time anyone said anything like "you're beautiful," whenever I was ready and put together, I was getting love because my condition that I created was right? So it wasn't actually authentic love. It wasn't love that actually hit my heart, where I got to be loved and accepted for who I was. I was only getting love and acceptance for what I was portraying and what I was creating for my life. And I thought that this was going to fill my desires. But I was constantly just disciplining myself, and my true desire for love and acceptance never actually got satisfied. And so I hit this point maybe 5 years into my process, and I remember going through something where I got really triggered, and I had gotten a lot healthier in my body image and not needing to look a certain way and the way that I ate and trained. But I hit this point where I got triggered, and I felt like, oh no, I need to get really, really fit in order to feel like I'm good enough. And so I started trying to discipline myself again. And I was friends with my husband at this time, and he was like, when are you gonna love yourself whenever your circumstances aren't right? When are you gonna love yourself when you're a mess? When are you gonna love yourself when you're stuck in eating disorders? When are you gonna love yourself when you've got an extra 20, 30, 40 pounds on you? And when he said that to me, I just felt like, no, that's not how I do things around here. Like, I will give myself love after I discipline myself into getting the proper results. And it started this process for me. I'm already 11 minutes in, so I won't go into the full story, but it started this process for me where I started recognizing that all of the healing that I had walked through, all of the rewiring God had done in my brain, I had just been using a bunch of the tools that God gave me and that I had learned to cover up what was actually going on. I was still just desiring love and acceptance, and I was still just trying to discipline that desire over and over again in order to get it. And at one point, God said to me, he said, honey, you've used all of the tools that I've given you this entire time, and it's worked really well. But when are you going to let my love be the thing that heals you? And in that moment, it was one of those things where there's the Logos word of God, and then there's the Rhema word of God. And Logos is what's written in the Bible. So it's things that God has spoken out before. But the Rhema is the fresh breath and word of God. So it's what's coming out of his mouth right now. And I believe, and I've experienced it for the last 15 years now, that I can hear the voice of God and have communion with him and actually have full conversations with him. But when I got that Rhema word and it was fresh and he was speaking it straight to my heart, I realized, oh my God, actually every time I talk about God, which I was in ministry school at the time, so I talked about him all the time. Every time I talked about God and how much healing I walked through, I always pointed to all of the tools that I learned along the way, and I always pointed to the disciplines, how I would spend time with him, how I would pray every day, how I would do all of these things and use all of these tools. And I never actually could say that it was God's love that had healed me or transformed me. I never said it. I never said it because it wasn't my experience. It really was learning the tools and doing the right things that was what brought me healing up until that point. And so I just recognized, like, oh my God, I don't know God's love. I know how to give it to other people. I do not know how to give it to myself. And I just put my hands up and I was like, I surrender. I surrender, God. Like, I'm done using all these cool tools that you gave me and all the cool tools I learned along the way. I want your love to change me. Will you heal me with your love? Will you transform me with your love? And I started practically every single time that I didn't feel like I was good enough, every time I got triggered, every time I started feeling inadequate in any area of my life, instead of fixing and changing myself and fasting and praying and doing declarations and working out and trying to get rid of the problem, I would sit in the problem. I would sit in the pain. And I'd be like, Sammy, I love you right here, right now. I'm not gonna fix you. I'm not gonna change you. So I would give myself unconditional love. I'm gonna love you here. You don't have to do anything to earn love. I'm going to give you love now when the conditions are wrong. And then I'd give myself compassion, which sounds like, Sammy, it makes so much sense that you'd feel triggered right now. It makes so much sense that you would feel inadequate because you were taught and you've believed your whole life that you would only get love if you did X, Y, or Z, or if you looked like this, or if you performed this way. It makes so much sense. I'd validate myself. I understand. It makes so much sense that you'd feel like that, and I'm with you in this. We don't have to fix this. We don't have to change this. I'm really sorry for what you went through. And I'm just gonna be here with you. I'm just gonna love you in this. And God, I invite your love in. Would you come and teach me your love in this area? You guys, I cannot tell you, I wanted to rip my skin off doing this. I was cringy inside. It felt repulsive to give myself love because I was used to disciplining my desire. Disciplining that thing in me that was like, I need love and acceptance. No, you just need to do this, this, and this. I was used to exercising discipline. And so I was afraid that if I loved myself in my mess, it would reinforce my mess. It would tell me, this mess is okay. And then I thought I would stay in my mess forever if I loved myself there because it felt like permission. But actually, what I didn't know at the time, even though I was doing this anyways, was that if I gave myself love and compassion there, it actually fueled my healing. It fueled my transformation. It actually fueled me into the heart of God. It was this thing that empowered me and motivated me to change. Transformation happens because of love and compassion. It doesn't happen because of discipline. You cannot discipline your desires. You can fill and satisfy your desires. And then what's crazy is the discipline that you do after that, it actually works. It works. The last 5 years of my eating healthy, of my working out, of loving myself, of feeling confident, of seeking God, guess what? It has been so sustainable and so freaking easy. I felt empowered, motivated, excited, alive. I don't get triggered and hate myself into trying to get the results. It's been easy, but it's because I loved and gave myself compassion before trying to discipline myself. Whenever you're getting your needs met and your desires filled, adding a discipline is this added little thing that makes your life easy. It actually discipline produces fruit in your life. Discipline is supposed to be a good thing. It's not supposed to be something that we dangle in front of ourselves as punishment. But we need love and compassion before we try to exercise discipline. And so in all of this, my encouragement to you guys is get aware of your stuff. Get aware of your triggers, your belief systems, what's going on inside of you. And then from there, start the process of what does it look like for me to love myself in this space first? To love me, to bring in the love of God into this moment and not try to fix it or change it. And then from there, find help. You are not created to do this alone, or you would not be in this world full of millions and millions of people. We are supposed to be the body. We're a body. We're supposed to do this together. We're supposed to be each other's hands and feet. I cannot tell you how much I capped my growth by not having leadership for the first 5 years of my walk. I had no leadership. I had no support. I didn't have people that could call me out on my blind spots. It is such a game changer. So find help, whether that's counseling or therapy, or whether you look into our coaching programs. Find help. It is such a game changer. Having support, leadership, and community along the way, along with having the tools of learning and figuring out like how do I actually connect with God? How do I hear his voice? How do I give myself love and compassion? How do I break the voice of self-hatred and shame? How do I get self-aware in the first place? And how do I heal those moments in my childhood that are influencing my life every single day? You aren't supposed to do it alone. And so find help. We would love to be there to love and support you. And I hope this was helpful for you today. That's all. That's all, guys. I'm done. Bye.